The Wednesday, August 12th, 2020 meeting of the North Bennington Prudential Committee. And we're meeting remotely by Zoom. I just called this meeting to order. We don't have any public showing. So we'll go to Treasurer's report if Mary chooses to speak on this.
I just unmuted myself. What I had sent earlier for the trustees to review is a analysis for the entire fiscal year ended June 30th. Just take a look at that. Make sure you don't have any questions, because eventually that will be published in the annual report, or not the village annual report.
This is for June 30th, 2020. Okay.
Yes. Not the one for the month, but the one that was for the whole fiscal year. So there were three that I sent: the month, the fiscal year, and the current month. I would comment that on the current month, the couple of things did happen. We used to have a separate account for the security deposit. In July, we were being, or actually in June or July, we were being charged $3 every month to have the account.
That's more than we earned, of course.
That's way more than we earned for like the 16 cents a month that we were earning.
Yep.
So I talked to Alice and we decided much easier just to roll it in, and we'll carry it on the, she'll carry it on her balance sheet, and we'll show it here on the treasurer's report, much like we did the sinking fund for the building maintenance.
Okay.
So you'll see that we're not going to try to apportion 12 cents interest here and there. It's just the way it is. So, but we're saving $3 a month on that one.
All right.
The other thing I would point out is I did access $200,000 today for the line of credit to pay this month's bills. We'll have state funds coming for September, so it will remain to be seen what, if anything, we will have to borrow going forward. I fully expect, as we've done for the past several years, that we do access that line of credit at least 2 months, possibly 3. So we'll just play it by ear and see where that goes. But that is there, so all the bills are paid and cash is on hand to do so.
All right. Were there any questions of the board to Mary? Seeing none offered, we'll move on. The warrants are also, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Skip the budget status report and go to the consent agenda, which consists of minutes. It says July 29th. Actually, that meeting was, when was that meeting? Earlier. I wrote the minutes up. Can't remember the date.
That was a Thursday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. But I got the minutes in later, so that's why it's reported as July 29th. And then the warrants, which are on, should be accessible through the link on the agenda. So those warrants include installments on all the assessments to the supervisory union, include payments made to Roy Terry, the painter, who's working on the essential maintenance practices on the east side of the building at the cornice and soffit level. And we also hired him to do the south side where there is a soffit and cornice that was newly installed in 1996 or so. So that wasn't essential maintenance practices. I was just painting, and then painting the entryway. He's virtually completed with all of that. There's just a little touch up I asked him to do on the entryway. And so he's been paid for the east side work and the high work on the south side. And I submitted the balance of his payment to Jim Kosis at the supervisory union today. And because we also have to pay, we'll have a special warrant later on in the month because we also have to pay for the tree work that Pembroke did, the cutting down those two Norway maples and removing the stumps, which they did a fantastic job on that from what I see.
Ray, do we know when they're going to replace or replant the new trees at all yet? Or is it
defer to Matt on that.
So,
Member of the tree committee.
So the tree committee is working with the school to, figure out how they can do that and whether they'll do it perhaps remotely, strangely enough, from the classrooms or whatever. But sometime in, I'm thinking September. Tim, is that the current thinking?
That would be fine with us.
Okay, I did get one email from the tree committee regarding this, how they're going to go about this. I think we have to be somewhat flexible on that, but certainly this fall, I think the specimens are in hand at Pembroke, and whenever we can put them in, and whether it's something they just go and plant, and then there's some sort of presentation ceremony about them. We'll have to see how that plays out, but we're ready to go. It's just, normally the children come down from school, wherever the tree that year is being planted, but it's on campus this year, both of them, and whether or not, again, given the plans that the school is regarding distancing and all that, I don't know yet what's going on.
And there is one of these trees is to be dedicated as well. Or is there a second dedication as well?
I'm not familiar with that. I know that the one tree I had been hoping for 2 years now to dedicate a tree to Dan Taub, who passed away and was a member of the school board at one time, and I'm still hoping to do that. And his wife Jean is aware of that, except I haven't been in touch with her for a long time. She's not here a lot of the time, so I don't know if it's something she wants to be present for, or we'll just have to. I've got to flesh that out a little bit.
Matthew, if I could interject, Jeff called me last week and he asked if I would sort of give him information just about when school was open and all that, and through the village lens. And he said that he did say that one of the trees was to be dedicated to Dan.
Yep.
So that was
I know.
definite.
But again, I would like to. I would like a plaque there, and I would like some formal mention of all that. And again, whether or not Jean or the family wants to be present or can be, and if not, just how we'll do that. But and the other tree, I think, is the standard annual Arbor Day planting. That's the one that the tree committee will pay for. And then I'm hoping that the school board, our board, will pay for the other tree, which we've discussed before. But
Yep.
Again, it will happen. We thought it was going to happen in May. Hopefully, it'll happen in September.
Right. This was something that was planned out, but then interrupted by the COVID pandemic.
While
It's
we're
in
on
the room.
trees, may I ask a quick question?
Yep.
I have a donor, an anonymous donor, who would like to plant 2 or 3 apple trees on campus, and they were thinking about sort of the fence line as you come up on School Street, the fence line there, right by the doctor's office and stuff like that. That's sort of on the far lawn that we don't really use very much, but sort of along that fence line, doing 2 or 3 apple trees, if that would be okay with you guys.
The fence that was removed, and then
Yeah, right in that area. Yes.
So, we've already planted. I think there are at least 3 other fruit trees there in that area, in that lawn area. My only concern is, we've been bouncing around ideas about building expansion options or synergies there, and I worry that the trees that are already there might need to be moved if that was to happen. On the other hand, I don't really see anywhere else where a fruit tree would do well.
Mhm.
So let's flesh that out a little further and take a look at where they might want them. If
Sure.
it was, that's a little bit tough.
I would note that one of those apple trees that's over there at that area now has suffered rather largely from children climbing on its limbs and breaking them off, which is another consideration.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I know they were.
It was pointed out to me the other day. So, but one large, it doesn't have very large limbs. That's why it breaks off. But what was the largest limb for this small tree was fractured and has to be removed. Repairable. And that's not the first one. So. At any rate, the other tree, I think there's one other apple tree over in that area, but that has been that maybe there's 2 others. I didn't count them, but further up the fence line toward the corner of our property, and they seem to be that one seems to be in okay shape. It hasn't been touched this way. This one small tree is small, so it's climbable by small children. And
another possible placement for something like that could be over the oil tank, where it's not part of the play field.
That is part of the play field. So.
Is it really? Right, all the way up?
Yes. I've seen them playing kickball and other things there.
Or along the fence in the cul-de-sac hole in,
right.
Doing something along that fence.
Yes.
Would be attractive and, and away a little bit off of that play area. But
our neighbors there have removed the dying butternut. It's gone. So that corner is not shaded by a larger nut tree. It might be a possible spot. Yes.
And this anonymous donor is really specific about fruit trees as opposed to any other options?
I mean, they might be open to something else, but that's what their first inkling was. So I'm happy to talk to you more about it and look around the property with you.
Yep.
Okay.
What about instead of, I know we've done some bushes, like what about fruit bushes instead of trees? You know, potentially have something the kids could potentially pick springtime. You know, they don't take long to cultivate. And, you know, obviously the playing around on the trees and stuff like that, they're less likely to ruin, damage them.
What do you think, Karen? Like raspberries or?
So, I mean, for instance, I mean, I don't know how much footage is there, but like at my house, like about a month ago, we planted raspberry and blackberry bushes. Not hard, relatively, and it just takes watering. That's all it takes, essentially. That, or I don't know, maybe blueberry bushes. You know, something that the kids could potentially, you know, use as, you know, something that could be cultivated and not take years upon years for it to be strong enough to, you know, avoid any damage or anything like that.
Well, for raspberries and blueberries and blackberries, you know, those all come into season in the summer. So
right. So,
but certainly teachers could hopefully in the future, you know, gather, you know, they could do something like that with fruit like that, and at the very least, it would feed something.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
just another option. I mean, as opposed to, you know, spending a large chunk of money, or even have a donor, you know, spend a large chunk of money on something that potentially may get ruined by, you know, the kids.
Sounds like we need to have further discussion on this, and we are in the middle of the consent agenda, so I'm going to call us back to approving the consent agenda. Minutes from July 29th, that's minutes I constructed from the last meeting, and warrants, which I described and are in your packet. You can access the through the agenda. And I think pretty much described everything that's in it. I would note that I receive a reimbursement. I purchased lap sealant for the rubber membrane roof, which this was an extra that I authorized for Roy Terry to do because he knows about doing this stuff. He went up and he provided, you know, he attended to every seam on the roof except the seams around. There's a ventilator in mid-roof at the high end of the roof over the library, and that needs someone to go up there and possibly add repair with some rubber, because there's, as Tim noted last meeting, it's not looking good, and Roy agreed with that it was in danger of beginning to leak. So
we've had enough of those.
And the reason he didn't try to do something with it was there was a puddle of water that prevented him from doing anything to it. So as part of that extra work, that was pretty much consumed by dealing with various roof seams that looked like they were beginning to open up and might start leaking water. So he did yeoman work up there, and hopefully now hold us until next summer when we intend to have the roof redone.
And I was asked to approve that request from you, from
right.
Central Office. Which
yeah, I went and I purchased all the sealant, so that's why I'm being reimbursed. I was the gopher. Anyway, so if everyone is agreeable, we will pass on the consent agenda, will we? Someone propose that we accept the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, Matt.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kiernan. And all in favor, we'll say aye. I'm in favor, so.
Aye.
All right. Okay. Policies, we don't have any. And the superintendent is up next.
First thing on the agenda, and I don't know how much this is going to apply to your district, but this is a vote from your board authorizing the superintendent to act during the state of emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the authority that you vote to give the superintendent expires when the emergency expires. This is guidance given from the Vermont Association of School Boards, so it came from your school board. It's designed to, the process to get a policy in place, as you know, can take at least 6 months, sometimes a year. So this is to authorize the superintendent to temporarily suspend the provisions of the board's policies and our whole policies as determined by the superintendent, and gives me the authority to act on those policies or create new policies to respond to the pandemic emergency. Probably doesn't impact, as I said, this board as much as it's the elementary and the MAU boards. You did see this, right? It was part of the packet.
Yes. I really don't think it applies to us. I know it doesn't apply to policies that are deemed legally binding that the legislature asks us to adopt.
The only way it may apply to you is not in practice, but you do vote on SVSU policies, and you have a representative on that board.
Yeah. But this is not a policy that's gone through that policy process. This is
And it's designed to not go through that process because there is nothing to do it.
right, because you want the authority to act nimbly in circumstances that are constantly morphing and changing. I do understand that. I don't think
to report to the board monthly, which happens anyways. I can't do anything that is inconsistent with existing district policies, so it's kind of protected that.
Yeah, I just don't think it affects this district, since we don't operate a school and we lease the school, and that I'm concerned about. My argument is that that the way we operate is not going to be affected by any of these decisions, because they're mostly concerned.
Before you the Vermont School Board Association asked me to, you can do what you want with it, but I did put it on here because, as I said, you have members on the SVSU policy board who votes on policies, and
Right.
I don't know the legal impacts if you say no, and I do a policy that that is basically does something that suspends an existing policy, and I can't imagine what that would be. So
Yeah, okay. Neither can I at the moment. We'd have to look specifically at policies. I'm not so much concerned about the policies that might be something you could suspend or change under this, since you declare that you won't change anything that's mandated by the state. But we have a couple. I'm more concerned about our policies for tuition and for residency, and I don't want them bothered because we lease the building, and
well, if you read what I said,
changes would bother the people that we have students tuitioning to.
Can we abstain from this vote
You can do whatever you want.
without prejudice? You know, just kind of like feeling not to vote no, which might have implications, but
I think that's a good point, right? Because if you vote no and then you are part of the policy committee, you don't abstain from that. You don't, you do participate in that. So it may be, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea what, this is.
So, Jim, does this actually put the policy committee in abeyance for a period of time or what?
I would say the policy committee can still meet. They still have work to do.
Right. But they would probably do their work with the idea of, consulting you about whether the policies would interfere with anything you thought might happen or need to happen. Right? Wouldn't they? Because it
really has to do about, I believe I have to close the school. The superintendent will do that. Like say there's an outbreak in one building.
Right. I got that. Yep.
And you do employ special ed employees who I may have to reassign.
Okay.
Well, that's a question. I thought we employed our own special ed person.
Still get special ed services from us, right?
Really only at the pre-K level.
Right.
The administrators who are part of the SU who oversee special education.
Yeah, so the LEA, whoever that ultimately is this year,
board
would be, yes.
Responds to.
Yep. And I understand that is something that, we're already, that the village school deals with that because they offer the special ed that is offered to our students. And they would definitely be subject to whatever needs to happen there because that's being worked out. And that would be a negotiation between the village school and the supervisory union personnel about what happens at under the aegis of the special ed offices and the pre-K, the early education.
I did not have a discussion with our attorney prior to this meeting that what happens if one board doesn't opt out to it. So I'll have that, you take that vote, I'll have that discussion whether it matters or not. And if it does, then I'll be asking to meet another meeting.
Okay, so I propose we table it and take it up next month again. And if you have some legal advice on it, we look at that legal advice. I'd appreciate that. Is that okay? Is that what the board wants to do?
So my question is, I'm looking at D on the implementation and communication. The superintendent is authorized to close any school in the district. And if we don't have a school in the district, but we have a board in the district, I just think I need some clarity on that. And I'm not saying that y'all would have different motivations or wouldn't both recognize the needs at any given time, but that seems to really speak to the schools that are part of your district, not schools that are operated outside of the district.
I would have no authority outside of the district.
What's that again?
I would have no authority. It's only in the district, not outside. I would have no authority outside of the district. I don't have any now.
You mean regarding the village school?
Yeah, I would have no authority then. I don't now. Right?
the only authority would be through early ed and special,
Certain components of
those components.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll take your signal on this, Ray. I'd be happy to table it.
Well, on the one hand, I see the point that I don't think it really applies to us. I don't, but on the other hand, the language is broad enough that it could be interpreted that way, I think. I'd like to have, I'd like to have, the VSBA put this out. I mean, it's their language.
Email.
Sorry?
I believe I forwarded you the email from them, but I can do it again. The language came from them. I sent it to
Okay.
our attorney, and the attorney said put it on, our attorney said to
Okay.
put the agendas and have the boards vote for it.
Yeah. So can we consult the VSBA's attorney about it? Or do we consult Stitzel?
I've just sent an email to Stitzel right now, so
Okay.
we'll get a response now. But
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. So my motion was that we table it. Is that the board's pleasure here?
I'll second that. Without prejudice, I mean, I'm not against, what you're trying to do. I just don't want it to somehow negatively impact the village schools' autonomy.
I'm asking for the schools that are not the village school. That's what I want to be clear on.
Yep. No, I know.
Tend to impact the village school's autonomy, and it's what I'm trying to do. I'm doing what I was asked to do. Put it on the agenda. It came from the Vermont School Association. I know you don't always like to be members of it, but so I added it to the agenda based on them sending that out. So
Okay. Well,
No harm, no foul, Jim. I get it. But
Yeah.
I just want to cover. I guess in a way, we're kind of protecting potentially the interpretations how it might be with respect to the village school. I totally respect you doing your job, and I hopefully every other school in the district would do exactly what you're asking. It's just unclear how it all kind of plays out. So that's all.
my only concern is the impact that you vote and take part on policies that we could use that same argument that they don't impact you, but you have representatives who come to policy committee meetings and vote on that. So I guess that's where I'm
but a lot of those policies are mandated policies, so we have no, we do vote for them because they're mandated. They may have specific tailoring sometimes, language tailoring.
And they're generated from a different source, which is
Right.
the people who deal with policies instead of somewhere else.
our draft policies
Yeah.
come from
I
the
understand your point, though. And, additionally, I had, just lost.
Come back, Ray. Come back.
I'm coming. Sorry about that. Here. Sorry about that. I just made some untoward swipe on my pad here. Yeah, well, okay. I look forward to hearing from Stitzel about it, and maybe that'll reassure us, and we'll be fine.
well, he is retired, so it won't be him.
He's retired?
Yes, he is.
Oh, okay. So someone else from.
Pitched to Dana Atwood, so that's
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So was there a motion made and was it voted upon to Simply
To
table.
table it. Yes, that was the motion. Are we all in favor of tabling it? Subject to receipt of a legal opinion from the SU's attorney.
Yes.
Simply just ask, does it impact anything that we're doing? And if you don't have to do it, it doesn't impact.
Right.
You know.
That's basically the opinion we're looking for. Yep. Thank you. All right. Did you vote, Kieran?
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah, we can
Okay.
get a response.
So that's all of us. All right. Anything else, Jim, that you want to talk about?
Good. Just
You already went over the discussion. That was before we started on athletics.
the only thing that I would say to you is the engineer that toured your building is not going to be supported by Efficiency Vermont. They want more detailed report. We were
Okay.
trying to act quickly on that. So
Yeah.
wherever your heating and air handling, well, you don't have air handlers, but whoever your heating building contractor or mechanical contractor that you use, I would suggest that you contact them if you do want to apply for part of that grant money for building ventilation and see what solutions they may offer you. That's what my meeting with Efficiency Vermont today said. That's what they're really looking for is
Okay.
specific repairs that could be done, not necessarily the portable ventilation unit, filtration units, unless there's no other option. And keep in mind, there's $6 million. Last I heard, there was 400 and some odd schools in the state of Vermont that applied for the $6 million, which I'm told would average to no more. If every school got an equal amount, it wouldn't be more than $14,000 per school. And we are, the engineer did a phase, the phase 3 plan, which was most expensive, the second one, and then what's the quick action plan, which would have cost the SU about $850,000, and we were hoping that Efficiency Vermont would give us half of that, and we could match half of it, but without more detail, that's not going to happen. So we're going back to the drawing board.
Yeah. Okay. So they want a specific plan for per building.
Yep, per building.
So Jim, may I ask a quick question on that? Because they can't do the bigger, more robust plan, are you looking at doing the individual air handlers and things like that, or are you looking at other options?
Well, since my meeting with Efficiency Vermont with that devastating news was today.
Yeah. Yep.
My quick reaction was to meet with Renee Gordon and say what I just said to you. Reach out, to Hayden, Bennington Heating, Cooling. Who else do we use? Mechanical contracting. Get them into our buildings and what suggestions can they do about what can we do for ventilation projects that, like for me, I have one of my schools has the old unit ventilator units under the windows, and there's fresh air intakes are all blocked over the years. People misguided but well intended attempts to block cold air from entering the building be energy efficient. And can maybe some new dampers be put in to redirect those away from the pipes that have been running behind those that could freeze if we opened them up? And is there smaller little projects that we could do to improve air quality as opposed to the $5 to $8 million bond issue to do all the buildings? $3 million alone from Mount Anthony High School, which isn't going to happen in this economic situation.
Yeah, I understand. All right, thank you. I'll look into it.
And I guess that's. I send you my updates every week, and that we're opening remotely.
Yeah,
I'm committed to get to a hybrid model as quick as possible. I'll repeat what went into that decision because I would like anyone to listen who's home listening to hear. Transportation is a big issue, but you can only put 12 people on a school bus. How can we do that? Do we have enough personal protection equipment on hand? I think we have about 10,000 masks that we've gotten in one or another, but how quickly will they last? We're buying plexiglass face shields at nurses' stations and front desk stations, but we're not going to put them where a mask will work. The problem with shields is it's another surface that has to be cleaned and disinfected. So the guidance is that we don't put them up unless it's an area where either physical distancing or masks can't work. I'm not sure I'm going to have enough staff who's going to be in the building. They have until Friday to tell us if they want to opt out. There's all kinds of guidance from the state on who qualifies for to either work remotely or stay home or take a leave of absence, a paid leave of absence, which could have an impact on us. So that entered my mind, making the decision. Am I going to have enough staff? Am I going to have the right staff? And can I physically distance everyone, particularly at Molly Stark Elementary with 400 students, the middle school, 600, and the high school with 900? Can I really physically distance everyone? And the answer is no. But we are committed to bringing in possibly, today's meeting that I had with administrators as early as the first week of September, or actually the second week of September, it's September 8th. Those students that remote learning isn't working for, consideration for students who need interventions and things like that. But I can't. I don't want to bring more than 20% in at any time right now as we get adjusted to what this looks like, because unfortunately it looks like we're in this for the long haul. When we first went out to match, I was thinking maybe a month, and then when that became apparent real soon by April vacation that we were going to be out for the whole year, at that point I still wasn't thinking that far ahead that we may not be opening in the fall. And as the other thing that we have on our plate is what's going to happen with fall sports. BPA released their guidance on what fall sports could look like, but that's still a local option on whether we adhere to what that guidance is. And you heard what I said about 12 students on a bus, right? So how do I transport a team over to Brattleboro for a game or a meet?
Jim, in terms of the fall sports and stuff like that, I know college football is in a really heavy debate this week, and they should be coming to a decision hopefully by the end of this week, if not early next week. Is that going to kind of be a deciding factor? I mean, if they can't do it, then obviously it should.
My own personal belief is it'd be very difficult for us to do it, but there is a lot of competing views on that, and you make a valid point. Who went first back in March? Who started shutting down before the public schools did? The colleges did. So is this an indicator of where we're going? But the governor and the BPA, which controls sports, are still saying that we're going to have sports. So that puts pressure on superintendents to, do you buck that recommendation and go in another direction, or do you try to find a way to make it work? So I put a group together today with the athletic director and school nurse and high school administrator, and they need to break down that guidance and give me an opinion before the MAU meeting next week of what our recommendation is going to be on sports.
I can't see it being feasible to take a football team 5 or 6 buses to a game with the limitations.
And then there's crowd control on that, because there's limits on, so it can only be like, I think 150 spectators at an event, so then I will have to plan for crowd control for that. And, we've seen businesses and restaurants, and we struggle with that type of thing. So whether we're prepared to do that, but I'm going to need some support on that if I make that decision.
Yeah, you are. It seems to me that the way things have sugared out a lot of difficult and probably generating a lot of noise decisions have been dropped on your lap. it seems like superintendents are, understandably, some of them are pretty frustrated based on a letter I read from someone upstate. But you seem to be handling this as coolly as you can, Jim. And I wouldn't want your job for anything at the moment. It's just
I'll make you a good offer for it.
a set of problems.
No, Jim, I would like to echo that. You know, this, you already, you know, went against state recommendations with shutting down, and I think that was the smartest thing that anybody could do. Hopefully, you can move back into your hybrid system or whatever, but I think that was bold. I spoke to administrators that I know up a little further north, and they were taken aback when I told them what you had decided and had reported. And I think they wish they had the strength to do the same.
It is about the safety and the health and safety of our students and staff first, you know, and I don't want to be the one that, you know, makes that decision, because I'm not sure we're ready for it. And I understand the hardship that this is on families. I mean, I just looking at an email from a parent right now who's not happy with that decision. I will respond to them, and hopefully, you know, I understand. I get it. And that's why we're committed, particularly the populations where remote learning is not working, or services that we can't provide remotely, bringing them into our buildings, trying to get our kindergarten students into the building as soon as possible. It may not be every day, but make that connection. You know, as an educator, it really bothers me what preschool and kindergarten looks like. Connection needs to happen, and the same thing with getting high school freshmen here. Won't be every day, but that'll be the first group that we let them get to see the school, make connections, and then those students who are new to the middle school will be the next group. So what we're working on right now is, because we meet with the principals at 1:30 tomorrow, but on what are those priorities of what group we can bring in safely to their school first. With all those things, do I have the right personal protection equipment? Do I have enough staff on hand? Because I do have to carefully negotiate with unions about, well, your students are remote, so why can't we work remote? And what I think is different under this remote model that we're going to go forward with, whereas the spring is, our buildings were closed because there still is a lot of fear, but there was a great unknown at that time. So everybody worked remotely. And did some students and families fall through the cracks? Absolutely they did. So I'm hoping that with this remote, that our staff, or as much of the staff as possible, is in the building, and all those support networks are there, so that teacher is teaching in a class, they can put their mask on and walk down to the principal's office and say, little Jimmy is not responding. He hasn't logged into a class. I haven't seen any work from him. The guidance counselor will be there. The SRO will be there, and possibly go knock on the door of the family and say, like, why aren't you're truant? And those resources were more difficult to manage when everybody was remote and trying to do it like in a Zoom meeting like this and get all those together, and including families that don't have reliable internet. Maybe we'll be opening up, internet cafes within our school where those students can come to school and physically distance, use the internet within the building, reliable internet within the building. Those are all things that we hope to accomplish as we start.
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
And you seem to be doing pretty well at coordinating all this and getting some cooperation.
I work with some great people. I have a really good team put together.
Yeah. And I wish all of us well for this coming year, given all these difficulties that we're facing.
I don't think any of us really, I say this and I repeat it, none of us asked for this. It's nobody's fault. We're all
Yep.
doing the best we can.
That's right. And we all have to have some consideration for what everybody else is working through in this situation. All right. Thank you very much, Jim. If you want, you can leave.
I can be the host, yeah.
Yep, and leave me being the host.
Make you the host.
We appreciate your presence tonight and seeing what's going on in the rest of the SU. Thank you.
All right. Well, everyone stay healthy.
Thanks.
Yeah, same to you. So am I the host now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So chair's report, let's see if we can get this done so we can get done in an hour. The painting project is basically wrapped up, and the roof triage I described earlier, that's wrapped up except for that ventilator in the middle of the library roof. And we are, Tim has assigned Rachel to get in touch with Pinnacle to see if they can come, and if they can't, then we'll talk to Vermont Roofing or Doxy about getting up there and dealing with the rubber that's around that vent. And I sent you a description of the costs. Ultimately, we on the painting, we did save some money. It cost us slightly more than less than the other estimate, but slightly more than the original estimate for the east side because we paid for a slightly more expensive paint. But overall, I think we did quite well with respect to what we got done and accomplished for the money that we spent, and we got the roof sort of Band-Aid approach taken care of so that we can feel fairly secure about lasting till spring. The 5th grade leak and ceiling repairs, I have someone who is said they will do it. I'm looking for a start date, and I think I can get one from him tomorrow. He was out of town through today, and he said that he would stick with it once he starts it, and it would get done. And I take it that would be in less than a week because it's not a huge amount of money, a huge amount of work, actually. Then C, plan for major facility work. I think that is basically down to roof replacement, and the other, the west side of the building and the north side of the building, we have to do the same EMP or essential maintenance practices on the paint on the soffit and cornice, with the addition of having someone take down and then reinstall the gutters that are up there on those sides of the building. And to do that, we will need to, I believe, because the cost will exceed $15,000, have a bidding on it. And in addition, we will have to do a bidding process for getting a roofer to do the roof. And I intend to ask Renee Gordon at the supervisor union to help us generate that process. I'm just letting you know that's what I think we need to do. And let me jump ahead to other FY21 tasks. That's the bidding process is one of those, and the other is I had some brief conversation about seeing if we can't, if the village school can't join into the consortium of the the other districts the other schools that get participate in the CEP plan for food service, which would, since that would provide basically free service for all of our children, that would be good for the children and good for the school's budget. Tim, do you want to say anything about that?
No, I think if we can do this, I think it would be a great thing for the school as far as giving access to any student who needs breakfast or lunch. And then we are, I'll be honest, we're probably the smallest or one of the smallest accounts there is for food service in the state. So
yeah,
we get charged significantly more than other districts do. So if we can join into that larger group, I think it would be a great boon to the community and save money overall to the district. And so if we can do that, I'm all for it. It may make it look a little different. And I know there was a substantial layout of funds for the kitchen, but I think there's a lot of things that we could do around that with that space in an academic sense, having the kids come in there and do cooking and things like that. If ultimately that space is not used for food prep in this new model, we would certainly find a use for that kitchen. So just to make sure folks are aware of that. But I would absolutely support that. So if Ray, anytime you want to pursue that with Jim and anybody else with the SU, I'm more than happy to be a part of that.
I think I would bring it up, but I think the guy's swamped at the moment.
Really? Maybe? Yeah.
I will mention it though, I'll mention it to Renee so that perhaps we can move forward, because I know they start talking about next year's budget sometime early in the fall. All of this year may be disrupted by all this COVID stuff.
Noting, Ray, that you did make at least 2 attempts, as I recall, through email to express your interest in discussing that with the SU back in January, February.
Yeah.
So, and then, whatever happened, but.
Well, the fact is that children got, and children who were not in any sort of public tuition situation, they could have been, going to Grace or to Sacred Heart, all got food if they wanted it during this pandemic to the end of the school year. It seems to me that it behooves us to make this switch and that they should be willing to allow us into it. And Tim gave a very good presentation there off the cuff about what it would save us and that it would improve things for our kids. So I would hope that would have some bargain, some force when in dealing with the committee and getting ourselves on it again. So, Tim, so I invited you to just talk about how things are going in terms of preparing for opening again.
Sure. I think I have to just echo what Jim has said, that this has been trying to work with a moving target from the get-go, and things have been shifting all the time. The latest guidance from the state just came out yesterday, and the guidance is significantly different, in some ways good, in some ways challenging for us, but the guidance for the younger population is significantly different than it was just a month ago. So for kindergarten or pre-K, kindergarten through 5th grade, they've changed the social distancing parameters. They've changed the guidance on facial coverings for everybody. That's going to be that all students and staff need to wear a mask. They are giving the option to staff members that if they feel comfortable and would like to wear a facial shield, while instructing, they can, but it's an option for them as individual teachers. So that those pieces, so we're working through those changes right now. I hope to have a updated draft plan to the staff by the end of this week, so we can discuss it and then send out the new plan going forward to the families and the community. We're still hoping to open up in what we're referring to as phase 2, which is with in-person instruction. I'm still figuring out whether it's going to be a hybrid model where part of the population is in the school and part of the population is at home, or whether we do 4 days of in-person instruction. So we're still working out those details. I think the piece that makes us significantly different than the SU is I think we're smaller, more nimble, able to adapt to some of these changes a little more quickly than a whole district might. So I think that's one of the pieces that sets us apart. And I think the staff has shown themselves to be incredibly innovative and flexible through this whole process. In the spring, they did an incredible job. I have no doubt they'll do an incredible job as we enter into it in the fall again, but it's going to be challenging. A lot of the data, as everybody has probably been seeing if they're following the news well, is that kids are less likely to get any very unlikely to be seriously ill by any contraction of COVID, but our staff is not necessarily in the same position. So we want to make sure we do everything we can to protect them and give them the options to protect themselves as much as they need to. So staffing is I think going to be one of the biggest challenges if we have, even if it's not COVID related, if we have some illnesses that are going through the building, and some staff get it and are out, it's going to make it hard for us to continue to do in-person instruction no matter what the model looks at, because our population of subs is going to be much smaller. But I'm hopeful. I think we'll be able to manage it. And if there's any time to try and do this, this is the time to try and do it. Vermont's numbers are the best in the country, and I anticipate that the numbers are going to shift as we enter further into the fall and enter into flu season again. I expect that there'll be closures again across the state, probably by November or December. So we'll do the best we can while we can, and we'll take it from there. We are investigating some other options for spaces. Some have sort of fallen through or not really worked out very well, but we had some positive gains last night in our town meeting with the village of North Bennington. So we have some options that might present themselves there, and so we're still investigating some other options as well. So I think it's, as much as it's a moving target, I think we're in the best position we can be, considering all the things that are happening. I think the numbers look pretty good for our enrollment. There still will be a portion of the population. We'll have a pretty good idea in another few days as to exactly how many are going to choose the remote learning option. We're making that an option for any student and family that wants to pursue that. And we do have some families that will, for personal reasons, for health reasons, for all sorts of different things, but we want to be able to support them. But it's going to be a year unlike any other year, and I think it's going to be even different than it was in the spring, because we're probably going to go back and forth a few times. And if the numbers start to shift in our area, I think we will immediately shift into a remote learning mode, and then be very, very conservative about coming back. So we can pivot to remote learning instantly, that very day. But as far as coming back together as a community, we'll have to take that more slowly and under the advice of the Department of Health. And I will say that the Vermont Department of Health has been outstanding throughout this as far as helping us navigate it, and local officials as well have been really good in answering all of our questions. So that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them, if you have any particular ones. I will say there's one meeting I had just the other day, and I'm sure Jim and his team had this similar conversation. But the ESSER funding, the Elementary and Secondary Education Relief Fund under the CARES Act,
Yes.
is finally being figured out how the money can be spent and things like that. And none of it is going to be able to be done retroactively. So all the expenses we've already incurred, none of that can fall into that piece. So purchasing 50 more Chromebooks, getting all the digital tools that we are going to need this year, all the PPE we've already purchased, none of that is going to be able to fall into that model right now. It's only the money's going forward, and we have to go through an approval process to make that happen. And I don't know if you guys have followed this, but we're now at the point where ordering PPE is a delay of months and months. So it's going to be I will say that's probably one of my deepest frustrations in learning that if you planned well and you were proactive in trying to figure out what you were going to need, you're not going to get any of that funding that may be handed down from the federal government.
And may I ask one question about that?
Yep.
Last month, you mentioned there was $400 some odd per.
That was what they were thinking, but
now it's not coming.
Well, now they don't. Well, they haven't decided how they're going to do it, whether it's going to be per pupil, and they haven't decided. And it sounds like they've all decided that it can only be going forward expenditures, not expenditures you've already incurred.
Wow, that's a hard thing.
Mm-hmm.
It took them so long to figure out
Right.
to put with the legislation.
And I'll be honest, I was hoping that might, I saw that was a potential option, and I still went into doing some of these expenditures knowing that we just needed to do it, but I was hoping that we would be able to offset some of those costs. So I made the first order of Chromebooks before we were even done with the school year to ensure that we were going to get them, because everything has been delayed. We just did the work to have a washer and dryer put in, and now all of that, even though all of these things are COVID related expenses, it sounds to me, at least in the initial thing, and we've expressed our dissatisfaction with this decision. I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but all of those things will not be able to be reimbursed through this process.
Yeah, Tim, who makes those? Is that state level? I mean, it's federal money, but it's state level.
I think from what I understand, it's the federal government made it fairly loose, and then each state was supposed to interpret it, is my understanding. But I hear something new almost every day as to exactly what the stipulations are.
Yeah.
So I can't be quoted on that, Matt, but that's, I think, about where it stands right now.
I'd like to keep a close eye on how maybe there's a differential in funding. Again, how the state allocates the funds relative to our school, your school, and other schools in the state, because I think that might be worth fleshing out.
Yep.
Another question I had is regarding the Shire's development at Lake Perrin. Do you have enrollments that are coming from there?
They are going to start, from what I understand, they're going to start opening that up for enrollment, or not. They're going to start opening it up for housing at the end of the month. So we could have some influx then, but I haven't heard anything about who is moving in. But I think they're going to start making the units available, they hope, by the end of the month.
You might have some kids come, possibly September, October, maybe.
That is very possible. Yes.
which raises the question, since they pushed school starts back to September 8th, whether the census will be pushed back from its mid-October point.
I think it's 30 days of instruction. So it's 30 days after you open. So it's not a
Yes.
specific date. So if our opening day has been moved off, then
Right.
then the census date would move over.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think it would be according to what your actual schedule was
Yeah.
for starting.
And that's another. I mean, and every school across the state is facing that with the change in date.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be a legislative action at the state level as to whether the number of days of schooling can be changed.
The school year gets shortened. Yeah,
or if everybody's going to have to extend at the end of the year.
right.
So that's something else that we're still waiting on, what the final decision will be there.
So-
From what I understand, Secretary French does not have the authority to do that. It has to be a legislative decision.
Right. It's written into law. So you, Tammy and Sherry are getting, dealing with numbers of children that are being enrolled.
So we started the registration
Some
process.
issues.
Yep. So
Some
we started
idea
the
of what it is.
Yeah, we started the registration process, and as of Tuesday, so it had only been open for a couple days, we had over 40% of the student body already enrolled. So I think it's going pretty well.
That sounds good.
And
Sounds
we'll
good.
do follow up for any family we haven't heard from, starting on Friday or Monday.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for all the hard work you've been doing. You're managing this as well as you can, as far as I can tell, and we appreciate it. What you're doing for the community and the school.
No, thank you, and I just have to thank everybody who's been involved. I mean, everybody's been stepping up and doing more than their fair share to make whatever plans we need work and come together. So I want to thank everybody involved at the school, especially the teaching staff. They've done an incredible job, and how much learning they've had to do over the last few months
Right.
to prepare for the unknown ahead, because it still is unknown as to what it's going to look like.
Right.
Big virtual hugs to all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, really great stuff. I wish you the best. Who knows what's going to happen. But
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
I will pass it on. Thank you very much. And I'm sure Lori will pass it on as well.
Yeah. Now, we have a lot of respect for everybody there. So, anyway, so I don't. The only thing I sort of forgot to mention was that I did send out the estimate for dealing with the ceiling repair, and that was $3,000, which seemed about right to me. Then the insurance company had denied the claim that we had started putting in together, but now the principal of the Rowley agency has asked for that to be reconsidered. So I don't know if it will happen, but I'm hopeful. We have a $2,500 deductible, so we know we're on the hook for that much. And I have not seen any bills or heard of any bills. Do you have a bill from her?
I just forwarded it to you and Renee today. It was the
Okay.
first time that I had seen a bill, and I
Okay.
think that it was sent to me because they had not heard back from the adjuster or from
The adjuster, yes,
Yeah.
right. So, there's the start, and then we will have a bill from Hayden for the plumbing work that he did. And also a bill from Hayden for installing the new faucet in the 5th grade and the lead filtration units in the boys' bathroom, which are all done. And we should forward our cost for the equipment part of that, the filters and the faucet, so that they can be taken into account in the rebate from the state about per fixture.
So, Ray, correct me here if I'm wrong, but so we have the 3,000 cleanup, which may or may not be covered. We have a $2,500 deductible.
Right.
And then should they honor the claim, they also will cover the costs of the repairs. But if they don't honor the claim, we're on the hook for all of it.
Yeah. If they agree to honor the claim, then we will pay $2,500 deductible. And previously they picked up the cost of the ServPro invoice, but I don't, they knew they were honoring that claim. I don't know that they would in this case. So the ServPro and the Hayden's plumbing work, and then the rebuild of the patching of the ceiling, reestablishing the acoustical grid and insulating above, that would be on us.
And total on all of that, are we looking at 10?
I don't know what the ServPro,
Servpro's $3,000.
$3,000.
Yeah.
Is that right, Tim?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about 6 plus Hayden's bill, which I don't know about. So
I haven't seen a bill from Hayden. I don't know what
yeah,
that one was.
okay. And that would be separate from the washer dryer installation that they put in.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I saw last week, and
Or the sinks.
the sinks. That's a separate item too. The sink, the filtration and the faucet unit may be covered under the program for paying for the hardware that the state had for lead abatement and the plumbing, the water supplies.
Yep.
There's an amount. I forget what the amount per fixture is.
300, something like that.
$300.
I believe it was $300 per fixture.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessarily broken down into
Right.
hardware versus labor.
Yes,
So I think
it was not. It was a flat fee, and I do not know. I don't know what the total is because I don't know what Hayden's bill is. But our hardware was below that $300 per fixture, and we probably are going to end up having to pay a little bit of Hayden's bill. I think is what it will end up. I mean, we'll have to pay it anyway, but we may get mostly reimbursed. I don't know.
Turned out to be a pretty good deal with all that, I think.
Yeah, we were. I thank Tim for the way he managed it, and that we ended up with only, really, we only ended up with one place that failed completely. The boys' bathroom fixtures are right at the number, and we did that as at least as I understand it, that was more prophylaxis than anything else to keep us from going over them.
Yep.
So, and
the retests have not been done, right? But that will happen.
I as soon as the work was done, I went into the system to let them know that we did it, and then they're supposed to send us out a new
Test kit.
testing kit for those ones we've done
Great.
corrections to. But I don't know how backed up they are with everything that's going on.
Great. That's the health department, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That one's it's the Vermont Environmental Protection Agency, I believe.
Oh, it's okay.
Well, don't even try to get a new license plate right now for a new car or a license. 6 to 12 weeks. I'm just seeing everybody panicking. They have not had their license or their plates have been expired for 6 to 8, 12 weeks, and they can't get their new plates. So,
Good. So I think that's really all I have to talk about. And we'll just keep plugging away at these things. I hope to be able to send out some news tomorrow about the repairing the ceiling, when it's going to happen. Hopefully it'll be done, because I specifically said 2 weeks from when I was talking to him. Hopefully it will be done in that time frame, which will be the end of next week. I hope to be able to say that for real in a day or so.
shall I make a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
I'll second.
We thank
Outside,
Mary and Lori and Tim for attending the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for all of your time, for volunteering. It's amazing work. Thank you. We appreciate it. Bye for now.